Based on the 100 questions that we received for this trade show, Faraz, feels like everyone is perfectly reacting to week one and their fantasy drafts based on the outcomes of just 1 week of football. Today, as you know, we take your questions. You're the backbone of the show. We give our input on all of the trades that we got in our inbox, plus some players that we are targeting in our own leagues, maybe a few rest of season rankings on top of this for us.
Yeah, I mean, whoever did good in week one, those are the players who are going to do great rest of season. Whoever, didn't do so well in your lineups, those are the guys that you just bench the rest of the season. That's how this works, right?
That's exactly how this works. You just extrapolate 1 week into 17 weeks on top of it. Okay. As you know, we've been asking for your video and audio questions. We got a number of great ones in the Discord, which is in the description down below. So first, let's send it on over to Spooky.
Hey, Josh and Faraz. I got a trade question for you. I have both McBride and I have Warren, and I'm looking to move one of them for a QB or a wide receiver. Both the Allen and Lamar owners want nothing to do with me. Do you guys have any suggestions for some good trade targets in which I don't feel like I'm overpaying, but their respective owners, feel like they're getting a deal? Really, in the sense that, at least in my league, and I'm sure a lot of other people's leagues, owners don't want to trade unless they feel like they're getting the world. So hopefully you guys can help me out. Really appreciate it. And Vols by 90 this week at Beat Georgia.
I have McBride and Tyler Warren. He needs a quarterback or wide receiver. So on top of this, we should note that Spooky has Brock Purdy. So he absolutely needs a quarterback right now. Faraz, what should he do?
It really depends who you're giving up here, right? Like you do have two options. You can give up, Tyler Warren. You can give up Trey McBride. For me, if I'm trading for a wide receiver, because I know he mentioned that he potentially wants a wide receiver instead of a quarterback, I'd rather give up Trey McBride because I can aim way higher and you can get way more. And you mentioned your league mates, like they feel like they need to get the world back, right? So maybe something like McBride and Pearsall for someone like Drake London, JSN even, who, by the way, JSN and Trey McBride were going right back to back basically in drafts, throw a little bit extra on top, right? So that's, and then you can just rock with Tyler Warren for the rest of the year, which I'm happy doing. Now, if I'm trading for a quarterback, a position, by the way, like outside of the top guys, like have less of a positional advantage than the tight end position. So I think I'd rather keep McBride there, give up Warren for a quarterback, whose name is red hot right now. And you see what you can get. Maybe a Jalen Hurts or a Jaden Daniels. If you add a little bit more on top of it, you might even be able to get Justin Fields plus a player back, especially because of the fact that whoever has Justin Fields, they might have another quarterback, just as a backup that they want to rely on. That's kind of how I'm handling this one.
So for the wide receivers, again, he has Ricky Pearsall, Travis Hunter, T-Mac. He's going to get Rashee Rice towards the second half of the season. Plus he has Tyreek Hill. So I think he's somewhat set at the wide receiver spot. And to me, the number one glaring issue is the quarterback position. And in fact, I'm sure Spooky at this point has already picked up, Daniel Jones or Geno Smith off the waiver wire just in case a trade doesn't happen. So looking at his roster, I would actually package, and this is tough because these are top 3 tight ends rest of season for me. I mean, Tyler Warren has already established himself in that area, especially with George Kittle being placed on injured reserve. I would package Tyler Warren and Dylan Sampson to go in and get an elite quarterback. So if it can't be, as he mentioned, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, then go the Jalen Hurts guy, then go the Jaden Daniels guy, right? I would make that deal for Joe Burrow as well, but that's as far as I would kind of go for a 2-for-1. So then I look at a whole bunch of other quarterbacks. Like, to me, it wouldn't be shocking if the Justin Fields team in your league drafted 2 quarterbacks at the start of the season. I think that Justin Herbert and how the pass rate is going for the Chargers is another player that you can really prioritize. And then maybe even later on, this wouldn't be a 1-for-1 even for Tyler Warren for this player. But I'm with you. We talked about it last week that Drake May, who had a rough week 1 in terms of his accuracy, is someone that even now I think Faraz you could possibly buy low on as a quarterback here moving forward until Brock Purdy comes back from his injury.
I agree. And the matchup is, on paper, it's pretty good, right, against the Dolphins. So, we saw what the Colts were able to do last week. We saw what, Daniel Jones was able to do against them. So the hope is that, we're going to see a little bit more out of Drake May this week. But the one thing that was concerning, only one design run for Drake May in last week's game, despite Josh McDaniels calling that out himself, saying that he barely got any last season. So I would love to see a little bit more from Drake May. Hopefully we do. He did average 18 fantasy points, right along what he got this week. Hopefully that kind of increases and we can see a little bit of that ceiling.
This is also not one of the moves I think you have to make right now, immediately. To me, Tyler Warren's stock is not going to decrease. Trey McBride's stock is not going to decrease as we go on these next few weeks. Like, they are the focal point of their passing game. So if no one's budging right now on one of those top 5 quarterbacks that we talked about, they might in 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks on top of this as their rosters get roughed up a little bit. Okay, second video question. Let's send it on over to Abel.
What's up, guys? Big fan of the show. I just had a trade offer come in a 10-man, half PPR, 3 wide receiver, 1 flex league. And I would be giving Kyler Murray, T. Higgins, and Deebo Samuel for Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, and Josh Downs. And I don't really know how I feel about A.J. Brown and Higgins right now. And I don't know how I feel about Deebo because I don't know if this is just because McLaurin's still getting back into things or this is what I should just expect from him.
Faraz, a 3-for-3 trade after just 1 game played. What do you think?
Blockbuster right here. I think I'm staying put here, man. Like I think T. Higgins, he had a rough game 1. That team is going to bounce back big time. Deebo Samuel in week 1, he did his thing, kind of expected, to be honest with you, just in this horizontal raid. It just fit like a glove in this offense, had a great training camp and didn't get hurt, stayed healthy throughout, looking good. Like, I don't look at that as a flash in the pan personally, and maybe that's one of the reasons why you're making this move, in case Deebo isn't that dude moving forward, especially when McLaurin starts ramping back up. And Josh Downs, like, is he a zero? Like, I know I talked about him last week. Are they going to just not run an 11 personnel?
But you adjust.
Adjust. And I don't know if buying Josh Downs low right now, even though he was like the guy I wanted to buy last week, is the move, because we don't have any indication right now whether he only ran around on 50% of dropbacks because of the fact that they didn't want to run as much 11 personnel, or because of the fact that, he had that injury coming into the season. We don't know. T. Higgins, A.J. Brown, kind of similar in terms of like where I have them ranked rest of season. You're taking a little bit of a hit at the quarterback position, but I think overall, the Kyler, Higgins, Deebo side wins this trade.
3 words I wrote down. Is this necessary? And mainly looking at his roster already. Like, he already has CeeDee Lamb on it, Puka Nacua on it, Jonathan Taylor, James Conner, Travis Kelce, and already having Justin Fields and not just solely having Kyler Murray as the only quarterback on your roster is a different factor here. And it's many of the same notes that you had, like T. Higgins, A.J. Brown. They're probably back-to-back in rest of season wide receiver rankings at this point. Sure, a jump from Jalen Hurts down to Kyler Murray is going to be advantageous for Abel. But the biggest difference in 2 players in this trade is dropping down from Deebo Samuel to Josh Downs. I don't think it's out of the question, and just throwing in a rest of season wrinkle here, I don't think it's out of the question for someone to rank Deebo Samuel flat out higher than Terry McLaurin for the rest of the season. I understand that Hayden's doing it for week 2. You're probably doing it for week 2 on top of that. Look, Terry is an awesome player. He just got paid. At the same time, he missed the bulk of training camp, and we know how he wins this offense can be a bit high variance in everything, right? Downfield shots, if those hit, if those don't. They didn't hit in week 1, and they might not hit at the same rate as they did last year. Deebo Samuel is the one that's getting the manufactured stuff. Deebo Samuel is getting the free releases, the stacked motions, the fun new toy in this system. And again, as we talked about in Stats versus Film, the dude had freaking pneumonia last season, right? Let's not forget that slows you down. That makes you worse. And he looks healthy. He looked awesome. And even left, 2 catches on the field in week 1 on top of this. So Deebo Samuel, you are trading away a bona fide, at least flex play. I know your roster stacked here, Abel. I wouldn't want to make that move down to Josh Downs from Deebo Samuel, even if I get like Jalen Hurts on top of this.
Remember, a couple years ago, Deebo was a league winner. Okay. And also, like, you're looking at a situation where Terry McLaurin, he's such a good player. You watch the film, you're like, oh my God, this guy is so good. Terry McLaurin has never averaged more than a 25% target share. What does that mean? That means that another player could potentially come in and take some target share away, eat some of that target share away. We saw it last year with some players that you would never put near your lineup this year. So Deebo Samuel can easily come here, be the 1B to Terry McLaurin, and at best can be the 1A based on how Cliff likes to use this type of player.
Right. And while the Colts offense looked great in week 1, we know that the Commanders basically on a weekly basis are going to be projected for more points than the Colts, even if that's not the case here in week 2. By the way, would love for all of you down in the comments below, if we didn't get to your question, ask each other. You know, this is a community. We get those constantly. Send your questions and the rest of the community can respond underneath it. Plus, if you want to give your feedback here on Spooky and Abel's trades, and if you disagree with us, definitely do that in the comments down below. Okay, we've got one more. This is from Ethan.
What's up, guys? I'm hoping to sell high and package Garrett Wilson, Dylan Sampson, and Jaden Reed for a few options. The first is Jonathan Taylor and Jamar Chase. The second is for T. Higgins and Josh Jacobs. And the last is for Brian Thomas Jr. and James Cook. Let me know what you think.
I don't want to typecast Faraz. Wouldn't be shocked if Ethan is a bit of a crypto bro. All right. Because he wants to sell high as soon as they see the peaks and maybe buy low on some of these very, very strong assets. He's in full sell high mode after one game played. What do you think of these 3 for 2 possibilities?
Man, like just try to trade for one of these studs, man. Don't ask for 2 studs. Like you're giving up like just half a fantasy stud or maybe 3/4 of a fantasy stud in this trade in Garrett Wilson. For me, if I got any of these trades, man, to be honest with you, I wouldn't even send a counter. I wouldn't even send a counter because it shows you're not serious. If you want to make a move, make the other person feel like they're winning, right? This feels like you're trying to get one over on me. If I got this, to be honest with you, so. Garrett Wilson, Dylan Sampson, Jaden Reed. Dylan Sampson plus Jaden Reed is probably one player. And then you got Garrett Wilson. Maybe go up and try to get someone like Jamar Chase with all 3. Like 3 for 1 is those trades are very hard to do. But maybe, try to go Garrett Wilson plus Jaden Reed for, Josh Jacobs or T. Higgins or BTJ or James Cook. Not 2 of these guys. That's going to be pretty tough to do.
Yeah, there's no way you can get Jonathan Taylor and Jamar Chase. To me, it's impossible to get T. Higgins and Josh Jacobs. And even if Brian Thomas Jr. had 1 catch in week 1, we all know that we selected him in the round 1-2 turn. And James Cook, on top of that, still owns the work inside the 10-yard line for the Buffalo Bills. So none of this is really possible. Here's what I would do. All right, Ethan, I would find the person in your league that has Xavier Worthy or Jawan Jennings or Isaiah Pacheco or even, heck, possibly A.J. Brown. And maybe that same drafter has 2 or even 3 of these names. And that's when I would do the 3 for 2s, because they are probably panicking that, 2 of my 3 starters or 3 of these players are, not living up to expectations after 1 week. I am panicking. And yet you're selling me, giving me players who did have great week 1. So I can kind of spread out the points rather than just focus in on these 2 down assets. So I wouldn't go after the players that you want per se. I would pick on the players already panicking in your league. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's a great point. What I like to do too is I like to, instead of looking at the players that I want to trade away, I look at everybody else's team and look at where their holes are, so I can try to fill those holes with my players and get what I want in return too. Because you are literally telling the other player like, "Hey, I see you, right, and I want to help you." And then you guys can make a deal that way. That's how I like to do it.
And I wasn't saying go and get Xavier Worthy or Jawan Jennings or Pacheco or A.J. Brown. Those are just the teams that might be feeling the worst after week 1 and see what their other positive assets are. Not that A.J. Brown isn't one. I definitely still want AJB on my team the rest of the way. Okay, as you know, each week on this episode, by the way, hit that subscribe button, leave a thumbs up. We're going to give some players we feel good about selling at this point with their value, and even ones that we believe are undervalued assets. So first, Faraz, I'll send it to you. Who are you selling high on right now?
I think it has to be Keon Coleman, man. Maybe he could break out. Maybe this is the year. I mean, and he looked good. Like there was a great connection there, but Josh Allen and him needed a very specific script to get Coleman super involved, right? It's not like he was the guy off the rip. They came into this game like, okay, we're going to get him the ball, coming right into this game. It wasn't until the fourth quarter until they got him involved and Josh Allen was like in this full on God mode, right? He took this power up and somehow transferred some of those powers to his wide receiver. That's literally what it looked like. But at the end of the day, extremely solid 26% target share in this game. But he came into the fourth quarter third in target share behind Khalil Shakir and Josh Palmer with only 12%, right? Third also in air yard share behind those two guys. He had one catch for 17 yards up until the fourth quarter. So you look at the other guys, overall, Josh Palmer, solid overall target share, 21%. Khalil Shakir, solid target share, 19%. He was also shadowed by Marlon Humphrey on 72% of his routes. We've seen Josh Allen give a lot of players some spike games before, right? Is this a profile, from the rookie year going into the second year that we want to bet on? There have been instances of players who've had similar stat lines breaking out, but it's been few and far between. And on top of that, he has a Sauce Gardner potential matchup this week against the Jets. Do we want to take advantage of a potential low week and just kind of get rid of him before, his stat line doesn't look so good?
I think the positive pitch for Keon Coleman is, hey, what if the Bills found their primary pass catcher, which they really haven't had for multiple years since Stephon Diggs, right? It's been shared wealth at tight end, running back, multiple wide receivers, all that type of stuff. I'm closer to you, and Hayden made a great point that Keon Coleman most likely profiles as a Gabe Davis high variance ness player. And when he has his peaks, when he has his great games, just like Gabe Davis previously did, you can buy into this. You think that this is going to just be who he is attached to Josh Allen. The other part of that, though, is high variance players do have a chance more often to have these peaks because it's in an offense that scores a lot of points attached to an alien at quarterback. So I don't think that the Bills have finally found their number one pass catcher. Again, I do believe that is going to be shared wealth. At the same time, I can also look at Keon Coleman and say he looked better this week than he did in many games last season. He sold vertical routes better. He created more separation on him by himself. And then, the broken plays are always such a big factor when we talk about Bills pass catchers. But I am with you. If you can flip him, let me ask this question, okay? If you could flip Keon Coleman for Matthew Golden right now, who people are probably slightly down on based on 53% of snaps and all that type of stuff, would you do it?
I wouldn't. And the reason for that, I wouldn't. And part of this is, it's a little nuanced, right? Keon Coleman isn't a zero for me, and I'd rather buy into the Bills offense where these spike weeks can happen, and I'm okay leaning into variance for a little bit, right? But I'd rather maybe use Keon in a package maybe and get just aim a little bit higher, because when you're buying someone like Golden, you're also buying a potential high variance player, right? In an offense that we could continue to see the target share really, not tightly distributed, but very, widely distributed, right? So I'd rather maybe use this big performance and a potential belief in a breakout here to get a more established player, I would say.
There comes a point in every summer where you simply run out of things to do. What I do in that moment is go to my phone and go to SeatGeek. Yes, they have you covered. For tonight, if you need something to do, I can go see the Struts with Dirty Honey, go see minor league baseball. Cypress Hill with Atmosphere is also playing in my city. Or if I need to plan a date, something to do with my wife this weekend, look, I can scroll down to the Popular This Weekend tab. Katy Perry's playing in a few cities over. Or if I want something a little more niche, maybe just as rugged and uncomfortable, Redneck Brawl. Yes, you see it. Redneck Brawl is in North Carolina. As you can see, SeatGeek has everything that you need. Concerts, sports, festivals. SeatGeek has you covered and has your back because each ticket is rated on a scale of 1 to 10, so you know you're getting a good deal. So, of course, I have a promo code for you. You can use code FANTASY10 for 10% off your next set of tickets on SeatGeek. Yes, that is 10% off any tickets with promo code FANTASY10 on SeatGeek right now. Make sure you click the link in the description down below to download the app and have the code automatically added to your account so you can use it later. Well, speaking of the 2-for-1, including Keon Coleman, I know you guys at Upper Hand Fantasy on Instagram got a question. A Schlesinger, 123. He wants to give up Emeka Egbuka and Keon Coleman for Lad McConkey. Would you consider that?
Oh, I think I would. I love Emeka
Interesting.
Egbuka. I love Emeka Egbuka. Emeka Egbuka is like, he was way higher in my rookie rankings than I didn't understand why he was being drafted so low in rookie rankings. I had no idea.
Same.
But I will say that I do think that Mike Evans is going to continue to be the number one wide receiver there. He dominated target share. He dominated air yard share. Wide receiver one type of utilization. The numbers weren't there. Emeka Egbuka had the fantasy points, obviously 2 touchdowns. But Mike Evans still got it, man. And I think he's going to be the number one throughout the season. I think Egbuka was at, I think it was a 22% target share in week 1, which is amazing, obviously, for rookie, first game ever in the NFL. But I like to take these guys because chances are Keon Coleman was on your bench. You probably weren't starting him in week 1. So now the question for me now is, Lad McConkey an upgrade over Emeka Egbuka, who is likely in your starting lineup? The answer to that, I think, is yes. So now my starting lineup got way stronger than it was before in a pass-happy, hopefully, Chargers offense with Justin Herbert straight up slinging it in week 1. I prefer that over a stronger bench.
I can't give up on Emeka Egbuka. Like, I understand you're getting Lad McConkey in this equation. He was already so impactful from a production standpoint in week 1 that, Faraz, we know rookies in second half of seasons even take a bigger step. And maybe I'm crazy and you think that this is a stupid mindset to have, but I'm not concerned when Chris Godwin returns in week 5 or week 6. This is also going to be a 3 wide receiver set team. We already know that Emeka Egbuka was running in 2 wide receiver sets. We have no idea the status of what Chris Godwin looks like when he comes back into the fold. I can't give up on Emeka Egbuka. It wouldn't shock me. And I love Lad. Don't get me wrong. Love him. It wouldn't shock me, though, if Emeka Egbuka is a top 20 scoring wide receiver this season, top 15 scoring wide receiver this season. And because of, Keenan Allen, Quentin Johnston, the rushing game on top of it, if Lad McConkey somehow finishes as, the wide receiver 12 in points per game this year, and Emeka is not that far behind. So I would not make this trade. I'm not against you doing it. I just can't give up on a rookie after a 22-point first game. Can't do it.
No, I totally get that. But, and it really goes, I think this is a case for philosophy. Like, how do you play the game, right? And for me, it's like, all right, well, if you told me that Lad McConkey was going to finish as the wide receiver 12 in fantasy points per game, and you told me that Egbuka was going to finish as the wide receiver 20 in fantasy points per game, and the other player was going to be on my bench for most of the season, I would take the guy who's finishing as the wide receiver 12.
I would still look to sell Keon Coleman, but I wouldn't package it with Emeka Egbuka here. Okay. My post week 1 sell is exactly the name that it was last week. And this is Dylan Sampson. Faraz, this is playing out perfectly for me, right? We had a really strong week 1 where the receiving, not usage, but production was magnificent. 8 catches, but those 8 catches were just on 15 routes. I mean, he was 3rd in targets among all running backs in the NFL, but that was on running back 38 route participation, according to Rich Rebar. Now, I'm not stupid. I'm not dumb. Obviously, when a rookie does this in week 1, that route participation, those numbers of snaps will certainly increase in the future because that's what happens with all these rookies. But at the same time, again, think back to what I said in this very show last week. They get the Ravens, then the Packers, then the Lions, and the Vikings over the next 4 weeks. Plus, Quinshon Judkins almost certainly is about to return to this team in some capacity, and that will take away potentially a rushing ceiling on top of this. And so that leaves Dylan Sampson with just receiving workload in a team that's projected once again for the fewest amount of points in the NFL. So look, he might get another, 5 catches, 6 catches next to Joe Flacco this week. If that's the case, and again, someone in your league is panicking about their running back situation or even nervous about Matthew Golden again playing 55% of the snaps, I would immediately flip Dylan Sampson because it wouldn't shock me at all if we see just his overall production decline as the season goes along.
Yeah, and great call by you, by the way. The fact that you called this before week 1, That's what I'm talking about right there.
Love
When
it.
you send this trade, make sure you also send the headline that Quinshon Judkins was in New York City meeting with the commissioner, because people are going to want to know what's going on there. And Dylan Sampson, you want to give the impression that he's going to be extremely usable for the foreseeable future. But I think you nailed it, man. 53%. He was targeted on 53% of his routes for a running back, which is absolutely unsustainable. Obviously, that's when you see these type of outliers, and you know that another running back is going to be involved. You want to make this type of move. He wasn't even the 2-minute back. Jerome Ford played 100% of the 2-minute snaps for the Browns, and you know they're going to be losing a ton. So at the back of the first half, at the end of games, it's going to be Jerome Ford on the field based on that role. 86% of long down and distance snaps too for Jerome Ford, only 14% for Dylan Sampson, 0% of the 2-minute snaps. So I'm with you, man. I don't think it's sustainable. I think you're really counting on those receptions, and I don't think you can moving forward. So I'm with you, man. Let's move on from Dylan Sampson while we can.
At the same time, that can immediately change here in week 2. He could get more work, yet his production declines. That is the most likely outcome here. And again, with the points that they were projected for last week, that's only going to decline as the season goes along when you're facing off against the Bengals in week 1 versus the Ravens, the Packers, the Lions, and the Vikings over the next 4 weeks, plus adding, the running back that was drafted before you in the same draft class. We actually got a great question, I thought, from Eric Tomlinson over on Twitter. He asked if he should trade Dylan Sampson straight up for Bhayshul Tuten. And I love this question for us because this is, a short-term win in Dylan Sampson that you're trading away for a long-term gain for me in Bhayshul Tuten. For 2 guys that were drafted right around running back 40 in your home leagues at best. So I would absolutely do this immediately because the Dylan Sampson stuff is almost a Band-Aid in your starting lineup, or if you went like extreme 0 running back, whereas Bhayshul Tuten, this could happen in week 4, it could happen in week 8, it could happen in week 11. But to me, eventually, he is going to take over the Jacksonville backfield. Maybe that's just an optimistic lens because I was taking a lot of Bhayshul Tuten. But again, that's when our leagues are won, and that's when these rookies really emerge, especially a talent like Bhayshul Tuten in a talented offense that's projected to score way more points this season than the Cleveland Browns.
I love it. I love that call because I agree. I think Bhayshul Tuten already got a boost, right? With this Tank Bigsby trade, he's going to become their RB2 behind Travis Etienne. Now, it could very well turn out that Travis Etienne turns into one of the best values
Definitely
in all
possible.
of drafts. Totally. That's obviously in the range of outcomes. And if I had to put a percentage on it, I would give that a higher percentage, but not by that much. Because I think Bhayshul Tuten is a very, very good prospect. He was the second most efficient running back besides Ashton Genty, and Bhayshul Tuten did it in the Power 5, right? Ashton Genty didn't. So that's, missed tackles forced, yards after contact. He's capable in the receiving game. It just reminds me so much, of the same head coach. Well, the head coach who used to be OC, Liam Cohen, when he drafted Bucky Irving, he also drafted an uber efficient running back for his team and ended up taking over the backfield, which could be a very, very similar situation in Jacksonville, where he drafted an uber efficient running back who could come in and start moving into Etienne's workload. In week 2, we're going to see him get some more work because Tank Bigsby also had a little bit of the share of the rushing.
Yep.
And now with him gone, we're going to see Tuten get some work. And he looked good last week with his limited opportunity. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this moves forward. I'm with you. I'm 100% taking this deal. I want a league winner potential sitting on my bench.
I'm expecting Bhayshul Tuten to get around 10 touches in week 2. Now, I did bring up the schedule issue that Dylan Sampson's facing. It's the same thing for the Jaguars. They get the Cincinnati Bengals this week, but in the future, it's then the Texans, the 49ers, the Chiefs, the Seahawks, and the Rams. So it's certainly not easy sledding. And as you said, even if I wasn't drafting the most expensive Jaguars back in Travis Etienne, I was constantly getting the cheapest option at the end of drafts. That definitely was Bhayshul Tuten. And yeah, one of these backs is gaining more competition for touches in Quinshon Judkins with Dylan Sampson, and the other one's shedding competition and Tank Bigsby going to Philly. It's really that simple for me. And okay, if we can just kind of flow this into our buys of the week, Bhayshul Tuten is one of those for me. Get him ahead of the time, and that might be this week, that might be next week, all that type of stuff. Rashee Rice, Faraz, for me, is another buy that still his value is probably maintaining itself in a lot of leagues out there. Even if Xavier Worthy does return to the field, he won't be the same for the entire season as the player that we drafted because of this dislocated shoulder. And then if he gets surgery or if he goes on injury reserve, he's going to be out for a very, very long time. And when you see Hollywood Brown get 16 targets in week 1, my brain immediately jumps to Rashee Rice getting league winning status once he returns to this team. And the downfield passing conversation and promises that we were given this summer are just going to be more difficult as Xavier Worthy's not on the field, and they'll just go back to the intermediate portion of the game. And then Keenan Allen is another buy for me because I'm still seeing him in other people's rankings as like wide receiver 51. And that's just not enough respect for the old man attached to Justin Herbert, who legit should be in like flex consideration moving forward.
Yeah, 100%. I'm with you on Rashee. I think you can target those 0-1 teams. If an 0-1 team has Rashee on their bench, you could potentially make a move there if they're panicking a little bit. If some of their other players underperformed, take away Rashee, who's not going to give them any points for the next several weeks, and the player who underperformed, and give them something that they could use in week 2. But what the Hollywood thing did to me, 39% target share, that said to me that, oh, maybe we got some target competition for Xavier Worthy. Otherwise, if Hollywood didn't have it, if Patrick Mahomes didn't trust them, those targets would just be completely distributed, just like it always has, just like it was last year, even with Xavier Worthy on the field until the very end of the season, going into the playoffs. So I agree, Rashee Rice is going to come in here, man. You know, he's going to earn like 32, 33% of targets. He's going to completely own that target share for sure.
Yeah, and it wasn't just the first 2-3 games of last season where Rashee Rice was, the focal point of this passing game. If you go back to week 12 of his rookie season, including playoff matchups, including Super Bowls on that, he's basically averaging like 14 points per game attached to Patrick Mahomes. And it's even more impactful to me if you drafted someone like Keenan Allen late in your draft, that then you can kind of fill in the early season production if you go and trade for Rashee Rice, because you have this commodity very late that you weren't expecting to be this impactful early on in Keenan Allen. And then for those, opening 5-6 games, and then you can just pivot that slot in your starting lineup over to Rashee Rice. So that's why those are kind of a tandem for me on my list. Okay, let's go to your list, Faraz. Who are we buying this week?
I think this is like one of the last chances. Like in the beginning of the season, I like to see, okay, who is the future untouchable guys, right? That you could potentially acquire. There's 3 guys that I'm looking at. Number 1 is Drake London, right? In the 3 games last year with Michael Penix, everybody cited the stat, 39% target share in those 3 games. Absolutely just laser focus on Drake London. And what happened in week 1? A very, very similar situation, right? You're looking at 36% target share, 24% air yard share. Didn't come down with that touchdown. If he did, probably be a little unattainable right now. He has a little bit of a, questionable tag associated with him right now going into week 2. My guess is that he's going to play, but use that to your advantage as well, because nobody likes a doubt going into their week. So go get Drake London. I think he's somebody who's going to compete for the overall wide receiver 1 this year based on how he's being used. So I absolutely love Drake London. Buying him right now. There's 2 running backs as well who I think might have a better workload going into year 2. Number 1 is Bucky Irving. Bucky Irving basically played like less than 50%. He averaged less than 50% of snaps last year. And now he has consumed the Rachaad White role, which is that passing down role, which is absolutely amazing. That's exactly what you want to see. So they talked about it coming into this season, like, oh, Bucky is going to be their guy. And they were not lying. The head coach was not lying. Todd Bowles said it early on. 78% of the rushing attempts in this game, 77% snap share, 14% target share, and he ran almost 60% route participation. That is Rachaad White's role, by the way. Those 2-minute snaps belonged to Rachaad White last year. So now with Bucky getting that, that's what you want to see. And then the third guy is Chase Brown. Chase Brown, 100% of the rushing attempts in this game on a high-powered offense. Obviously, they had a down game. They always do against the Browns, right? For whatever reason, Joe Burrow can't get it together against the Browns, and that offense fluttered. That's okay. Moving forward, Chase Brown's going to be the guy. Now, Samaje Perine playing the passing down role. That's okay, because 75% of Chase Brown's catches last year came on early downs. Okay, so he's still going to be running plenty of routes. I'm not worried about that. But those are the 3 guys I'm trying to get now before they blow up.
Okay, let's tie this into some of the questions that we got specifically on Upper Hand Fantasy's Instagram. This is from Uncle Jay. He got offered Drake London for Garrett Wilson. I would immediately take this. Now, again, my bias is that Garrett Wilson might not be able to sustain this production, even if how good the Jets offense looked in week one. This honestly might be the highest number of points he scores all season long. Not to be a Debbie Downer. Whereas Drake London, he was wide receiver 2 in expected points in week one, but finished as the wide receiver 28 overall on the week. It's the perfect time to buy low here because I just believe in the Falcons passing offense for the next 16 games versus the Jets passing offense, which again, they were ready to play in week one, scored way more points than they were projected for. But it's just not something I think is sustainable week in, week out, like I do with London and Penix.
The Jets were so run heavy in this game,
Yeah.
like really, really run heavy. Neutral situations, extremely run heavy. So I don't expect, I expect the target share to be bananas for Garrett Wilson, but the raw targets to not necessarily be, near the top of the league in terms of these elite wide receivers. I think Drake London is going to have that combination that you want: high raw target number and a high target share, with a potential gunslinger in Michael Penix, right? So, opposed to somebody who's going to continue to run the ball. So I'm definitely smashing accepting this trade.
Drake London led the NFL last season in team share of end zone targets, and we know that team's going to pass just way more often than the Jets. Again, love what the Jets did. Runaway routes, getting them across the formation. Those are some of the easiest throws that Justin Fields can make, who, again, look very good. I just do not see that lasting, but you all can disagree with me if you want to. All right, that photo taker, trade Kenneth Walker and James Conner for a single Chase Brown or a single Bucky Irving. Again, these are your two near unattainables that might be so after week 2. What do you think for us?
I have a feeling we're going to disagree about this one, man, because it kind of goes back to what I was talking about earlier, where I like to improve that starting lineup. Now, Kenneth Walker, carrying him right now, a little bit of a risk, right? We don't know. And listen, I'm going to be the first to admit, I was high on Kenneth Walker this year. I just saw what they did in the preseason, and I'm like, oh my God, this outside zone run scheme is going to do wonders when Kenneth Walker's on the field. But that's the question. Is he going to be on the field ahead of Zach Charbonnet? He was not in week 1. Similar situation to Josh Downs. It's like, okay, are they ramping him up? Or is this how they're going to operate, right? That's the question. And the thing is, Zach Charbonnet is playing well. It's hard to take him off the field. So I might end up moving on from Kenneth Walker. You have Trey Benson also kind of involved. It's not the end of the world for James Conner. I still have him ranked as a low-end RB1 going into this week, but a little bit lower on my rest of season rankings because it looks like Trey Benson is getting some drives on his own more than last year. So I could potentially move on from both of these as long as I have another solid running back on my roster that I could start every week. I will make this move for either of these guys. The guy I prefer is Bucky Irving, just by a hair over Chase Brown. But I would make this move. It's really dependent on if I have that other running back who I can call a top 24 guy.
I definitely anticipate Chase Brown and Bucky Irving finishing as top 12 running backs, heck, even top 10 in points per game. I don't think there's a chance that they finish as top 3 overall backs. That is the Bijan, Derrick Henry, Saquon, Christian McCaffrey, obviously, area. And to me, there's just not a chance that either of those guys get to it. So then we're talking about, I don't know, the running back 7 to the running back 12 area. And that is extremely valuable. But I do think that there's a possibility that equals, 15 points per game versus the vaunted 20 points per contest, like we're hoping for in those top 3, top 4, really league defining backs. I'm okay if you want to make this move. Totally okay with it. I will add, trading James Conner ahead of playing the Carolina Panthers in week 2, when he's ranked as probably the running back 9 overall this week, is a really sticky situation. Would not do this. And to me, I still want to gather information on the Seattle Seahawks backfield. I understand it was basically a 50-50 split. It was inside the 10-yard line. One guy got a 2-minute drill. They each took drives. But what San Francisco did up front with their late movement to prevent this really good Seattle blocking scheme to work can immediately change when they play a different opponent in week 2 or week 3 and week 4. So I know everyone is sky's falling with the Seattle backfield. I am not just yet, but again, that can definitely change here in a couple more weeks when you get more carries and more drives underneath their belt.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. Now, the one place I will disagree with you is the fact that I do think that Chase Brown or Bucky Irving could finish maybe not top 3, but maybe top 5-ish.
Okay.
Chase Brown, when he got the opportunity last year, he was maybe the RB2, RB3.
But there's a difference in the
in points per
opportunity
game.
because that was at like 93% snaps, and now he's at 75% snaps.
Sure.
And that is like a changing for me. And I'm not saying that, Samaje Perine's taking away from him, but at least they have someone else they can trust in that backfield versus, 93% of the time of him playing last season.
Yeah, 100%. It's very fair. Very fair. Yeah, I agree. I think the targets will be there on early downs, but we'll see. I think just the fact that he's getting all the rushing attempts is just absolutely amazing. But yeah, I love it.
Okay. Another one. Daniel 4 asks Jakobi Meyers or Emeka Egbuka. What do you think here for us?
Hey man, I know this might sound a little crazy. But I'm taking Jakobi Meyers. I am.
Love it.
I'm taking Jakobi Meyers. I think with Geno Smith, who's a much more accurate quarterback than Jakobi Meyers had last year. Meyers was, if I'm not mistaken, he was a top 24 guy in fantasy points per game with inaccuracy, fighting off Brock Bowers, and he still will this year, obviously. But in what should be I think the passing offense looked relatively good in week 1. And this could turn into a pretty fast offense if Chip Kelly, does Chip Kelly things. And he's just more dependable. I think he's going to maintain that high target share. He's always been a target earner for the last several years. And now in possibly the best situation that he's been in, I just think he's more dependable, higher floor. Does he have the same ceiling that as Egbuka does? I would probably say no. But I think because that threshold is so high already with Jakobi Meyers in a decent offensive environment, what I think is going to be a decent offensive environment in terms of the passing game, I think I'm going to go Meyers here, man. But it's so close. And again, I'm like you. I don't want to give up on the potential of Emeka Egbuka. But in this situation, I think it'll be just a better fantasy football move moving forward.
Meyers is constantly one of the most overlooked players, no matter what position in fantasy football every single year. Super dependable. And yeah, what we saw in week 1 is this team being totally unable to run the football and then just pivoting on over to the passing game. I do think in most games, the Bucs will be projected for more points than the Raiders. However, if we look in week 2, the Raiders against the Chargers are projected for 21.5 points, and the Bucs against the Houston Texans are projected for just 20. So they have them beat this week. I totally fine with each of these. Again, I just want to point to second half of fantasy seasons are defined by rookies constantly.
Who are you taking?
I'm still taking Egbuka. I'm still taking Emeka Egbuka. So that's how we roll. But I love Jakobi Meyers on top of it. All right, last question here, and it's a doozy. This is from Nutella 2008. Trade question. Would you trade BTJ and Caleb Johnson for Omarion Hampton and Jameson Williams? And he notes that this is standard scoring. Okay, let's go through each of these things. First, the most distressed asset, if we can put it on there, is Caleb Johnson playing just 2 snaps in week 1. He's not going to only play 2 snaps in every single game, but I can't point to when Arthur Smith is going to pivot over to his rookie 3rd round running back because, hey, maybe Arthur Smith has moved on from Cordero Patterson, but now he loves Kenny Gainwell. We don't know. We don't know what is going on in his brain. The other part of this too is that Gainwell had the most snaps, but obviously Jalen Warren had the most touches, and Aaron Rodgers might prefer someone who is just totally trusted in pass protection. And I don't know if Caleb Johnson can give that avenue for Jalen Warren in terms of taking over that part. The other part, okay, Jameson Williams was on one of the most disappointing offenses in week 1 in the Detroit Lions, and he suffered the most in comparison to Amon-Ra St. Brown and Sam Laporta. I'm still a JMO guy, but again, Faraz, if the Lions scored 33 points per game last year, they were projected for, 22 points in week 1. They scored basically 6 with their first team offense. It does get better in week 2 when they're projected for 26.5, but that's still, a full touchdown difference versus how many points they were putting on the board last year. And did Johnny Morton show you the same type of creativity to manufacture the ball into Jameson Williams' hands in week 1? The answer to that is an obvious no.
It's tough. It's really, I'm a little bit worried. This was one of the things that I was a little bit worried on coming in, but it didn't really affect whether I was grabbing Amon-Ra or whether I was grabbing Jameson Williams or Jahmyr Gibbs. But now after week one, I'm like, uh-oh, like this is not ideal. And then I saw his answer today, how do you fix the run game? And he said,
He's like, we got it.
We got it. It's just a couple tweaks. It's easy. And I'm like,
we'll see.
okay, is that how it works in the NFL? Like, I thought things were hard and difficult. But yeah, no, I think, as far as this trade goes, like me trading for Jameson Williams right now, it seems like you're almost, getting him, at a really, really big discount here. BTJ, I think there are some concerns there too. Like Trevor Lawrence, man, like, come on, man. Like he is just missing guys left and right. And his head coach literally went through each of them. Each of them misses in a press conference publicly. Like that's not what you want to see. So I have my concerns with BTJ. Travis Hunter had damn near 30% target share in his first game, out of the slot. We've seen slot receivers in this type of offense, Cooper Kupp, obviously Chris Godwin, doing their thing. So that's a concern for me. Caleb Johnson, where does he go from here? Omarion Hampton basically dominated, touches and snaps for the Chargers. The question is, how much do you believe in the fact that Najee Harris was, in fact, on a little bit of a snap count, and how much is he going to be involved? Greg Roman's history tells me that he will be involved, but also Omarion Hampton is a very, very, very talented back. I would take the shot at grabbing these two guys, Omarion Hampton and Jameson Williams, and hoping that the Lions offense bounces back, hoping that Omarion continues to get the lion's share of the work in the Chargers backfield. I absolutely love how that offense looks. And I don't want to depend on the Arthur Smith running back. I'm getting out while I can.
The standard scoring element does stand out to me because it actually can boost Jameson Williams just a little bit because he's not going to be a volume player. He might be right around 5 catches on a weekly basis. And Brian Thomas Jr., like you said, 7 targets last week, just 1 reception because of some wayward passes. And on the Lions front, I mentioned the 26 plus points. They're actually projected for the second most points in the NFL this week, tied with the Buffalo Bills and only behind the Baltimore Ravens. So yeah, standard definitely favors running backs on top of that. And while I would rank Brian Thomas Jr. as the best asset here for the rest of the season, the Omarion Hampton and Jameson Williams side is one I don't want to necessarily pass up on if possible. That's going to do it. Look at us. Another 45 minutes in the books. Plenty of trade questions asked and answered. Again, leave them down in the comments to get your replies, your feedback from the community. And as always, go and follow, subscribe to Faraz on Instagram. That is Upper Hand Fantasy. He's got plenty of content on the way, and we do too here on the channel. So hit that subscribe button. I want to talk to you all next time. See ya.